Welcome to Web Application Development course. In this course, we are going to see how to implement web application development using Python Flask. So these are the contents of the course today we are going to cover. The first content is introduction. Second one is simple web application using Python, and then how we are going to implement this web development frameworks and a simple web application using HTML and Flask. Next, we are going to connect the simple application with the database. And for that database, we are using SQL Alchemy, and finally, either we can do it offline by installing all the softwares, or we can do it by online. And finally, the API basics. So these are the content we are going to cover in this class. So first we will start with the introduction. So if you see the introduction for web apps, so it works across OS, whatever device you are using, as well as whatever operating system you are using, this application, web application will work. So for example, you can open the web browser in the mobile, and then we can work on this web application. Similarly, you can open the same web application in the laptop and you can use on it. So it is device independent as well as operating system independent. So it's creating a common base. So next, it is heavily dependent on the internet. Without internet, this web application cannot work. So next point, components of an application. So these are some of the components. First, we are going to see about the storage. So where the content are stored in this web application and how it is organized, right? So these are the major things that we have to understand if you are going for a web application. So it will be stored in the server, and it will be available in the server. From the server, we will try to access that particular application. So next is compute. How we are computing that uh, the values from the web browser. So for example, indexing of email is doing some computation in the arranging of emails in the Gmail. Right, and then searching is also doing, we have to find the data which is available in the storage. So it has to be the time complexity should be minimized. So that is what also given in this compute. And then finally the presentation. So whatever you have searched or whatever you are indexing of the emails, that should be presented to the user. So that is what done by this presentation. It will display list of mails, and as well as it will also display individual mails for the user to read, right? So the email here, it is taken for a simple application. Similarly, you can refer any other example for this application. So next we will start with MVC, which is represented. So MVC is very much important to represent this web application, which is represented as model view controller. So the model represents the data of the application. It contains the business logic and rules for how the data is stored and manipulated. Next is view. So view is nothing but it is an interface which is displaying the content to the user. So it is responsible for displaying the data to the user. It renders the data into a graphical user interface that the user can interact with. Next is controller. The controller mediates between the model and the view. It receives the input from the view and updates the model accordingly. So model is nothing but the tables which we are using in the database. So whatever data you are receiving from the user, that will be updated in the table as a model, and that will be stored in the database. So it executes the business logic of the application. So controller itself, it will be represented as the business logic of the application. So this is the diagrammatic representation of model, view, and controller. So here, if you see, view is directly connected to the user. So user will access the application only through the view. And model will be in the backend session, and controller will be the business logic, which is going to communicate between the view and the model. So from view, it will get the user actions, and it will update the model based on the user actions. And from the notification which is obtained from the model, it will update the view of the user. So this is how the methods which are used in the HTTP protocol, because we know that since it is a web application, it has to use a protocol to communicate between the server and the client. So the protocol used for a web application through internet is HTTP protocol, and these are some of the methods that are used to update that web application based on the request. So if you see here in this, if you see here, so the browser of this is the model where we are going to do any insertion, deletion, or updation, and then view whatever content the user has to view. We will select from the model, right? So what we are going to represent here. So we, if you want to get some content from the web application, then we are using the get method to retrieve the content. So post, put, and delete or other methods which are used in HTTP, which is not easily used by all the users. Only the authorized users can use this type of methods. So post is nothing but you are going to post some content into the web application. So for that we will use this post method. And similarly, put method, difference between post and put. Uh, Put will update to the existing content, and then post will be creating a new instance for the data. And then delete is nothing but if you want to delete a particular instance from the web application, then that delete method is used. So controller is the business logic which plays between the model and view. And if it is an insertion, post and put, it has to insert or update, that will be done. And then delete, it will delete, right? So get, post, put, and delete are methods of HTTP protocol. So next we will go through the software architecture patterns. So what is a design pattern? A general reusable solution to a commonly occurring problem within a given context in software design. So next we will see hypertext transfer protocol. As I said earlier, HTTP is the protocol which is used to access the web application from the server, right? So it is a protocol for communication. And primary text-based request specified as get, post, put, etc. Headers can be used to convey acceptable response types, languages, encoding, which host to connect to, and it consists of response headers, convey message type and data, cache information, status code. Right? For example, status code, if it is 200, it specifies the request is success, right? So that is what the status code represents. So it consists of header and body, and request will be a particular message, and response will be a particular message. That is what represented here. So these are some of the request type. So if you see, if it is a get, you are going to just read the content from the web application. So gets a resource from the server, and post, create a new resource on the server, and put, update an existing resource on the server, as I said earlier. And delete, deletes an existing resource from the server. And head, it gets the header for a resource without getting the body. Only the header information will be shown to you. And options gets the supported method for a resource. Trace echoes back the request to the client. So next we will start working with the programming, right? So this is how we are going to create a simple web application without writing much more coding, right? So only this line, for this server we are using only this line, and for the client we are using only this line, right? So these are the lines we are using for implementing a server and client. So first we will start executing this. So here I am using anaconda prompt for executing. So just I will stop the previous content also, right? So now what I am going to do, so just I am going to copy paste the server command, which is python -m http.server. I am just copy pasting it. and then pasting it here, right? So this started the server and it is running in the port 800. So here using console, I'm going to show you how a web application is working, right? So it is started in port 8000 and it is serving on the port number 8000. Now I am going to open a client, right? Consider this is a client and here I am going to execute this curl command, right? So if you see here, what is curl? Curl is client URL, right? So which is pronounced as curl is a command line tool that enables data exchange between a device and the server through a terminal, right? So now we are executing only through the terminal. So it is representing how we are communicating through the terminal, right? So URL is nothing but universal resource locator, URL. We are locating a particular resource universally. That is what you are, right? So curl command is going to represent a client which is running, represent as a client, and it is going to get the request from the server which is running in the port number 8000. Already we have started the server and it is waiting for the request, and it is waiting for the request in the port number 8000. Okay, so now we are going to supply the client request using the curl command. If you see here, automatically it is printing. So how it is printing? Hello, this is my new app. This is nothing but this is already available in index.html page, right? So I will show you the folder from which it is executing. If you see here, right? So this is the index page, right? So in this index page, it is representing, hello, this is my new app. So automatically, if you started the server, the index page will be automatically loaded into the server, right? So here, if you see the status code, it is 200. That means the connection is successful and the request is served successfully, right? So that is, and here, what type of method we are using in HTTP protocol, get method to read the content, right? So that is what get. And now if you see here in the client side, what it is representing, it is displaying the content which is served by the server, right? So the content is nothing but it is available in the index.html file, which I have showed now, right? So this is what index.html file. Okay, next we will move on to the next content. So now let's create an index.html file in the server and make the request again, right? So now the request, what we are going to do, we are going to make the request by using the browser, right? So far we have made the request. We are running one terminal as server and we are running another terminal as client, right? So this is how the console is communicating. One console is the server and another console is the client. So now what we are going to do, we are going to open a browser and using the browser, we are going to execute it, right? So already I have executed it. So just I will copy paste the content which is represented here. So I'm opening the browser as a client and I'm going to communicate with the server which is running in the terminal, right? So this is what the server which is running, still running. It is running in this URL. So I'm going to communicate with this by represent. So it is running in 8000, right? So just I'm giving 8000 as the http:// localhost specifies this is the system where the server runs, right? So either you can give 127.0.0.1, otherwise you can give localhost to represent the self system, and then it is representing 8000, right? Which is the port number in which the server is servicing. So now it is displaying the index file, which is given as the content as hello, this is my new app. So if you see the content of index file, the same content will be represented. So just I am giving some more content for your better understanding. Develop by Dave. And then I'm saving this content. Once again, I'm refreshing this page. Can you able to see the difference, right? So now it is, I have saved it, and that is reflected in this client side. So now the client is a browser, but the server is still a terminal, right? So you can execute the client side either in the console or in the browser side, right? So we have done these two. So this is a simple web application implementation using terminal point. Next, we will move on to the next slide. So next we will see about web development frameworks. So next is Python. Python is used for web development frameworks. So Google and Netflix uses this Python web development framework. So Django is a free. It is also Django is nothing but it is a Python web development framework, and it is an open source framework also. So it is used to construct APIs and web application. It's not ideal for smaller projects. So what we are going to experiment in this class is only smaller projects. So we are not going to use Django. We are going to directly use Flask, right? Because Django, it's applicable for larger projects. So next is Python. Sorry, next what we are going to see after Django, we are going to see about Cherry Pie. It is a lightweight, quick and stable Python web development framework. So it is also open source, integrated utilities for encoding, sessions, caching, authentication and static content. So it is difficult for beginners to work. So since it is only for experienced developers to use this cherry pie. So similarly, Django, it's for larger project. So next comes Flask, which is available under BSD. What is BSD? Berkeley Source Distribution License. So WSGI, which is Web Service Gateway Interface Toolkit, and Jinja 2 template. So this Flask supports this toolkit and Jinja 2 template. So the toolkit is WSGI. So here it is better suited for tiny and simple projects than Django. So that we have chosen Flask in this today's session. So you can implement any web development frameworks based on your how to say based on your whether you have in a very experienced Python, then you can go for cherry pie, and if you want to work in large project you can go for Django, right? So and other flavors is also available for web development frameworks, Pramid, which is used for Mozilla, Elp, Dropbox and SurveyMonkey. And next is Grok, creating sophisticated and adaptable web applications. So these are some of our other web development frameworks: Turbo Gears, Web2, Py, and Bottle, Falcon, Cubic Web. So next we will go on with how HTML and Flask is going to communicate, right? So using static text. So the meaning static text here is you are going to give the input content within the program itself, and that program is going to display the content in the web browser while you are executing your Flask program. So the basic things to follow for all projects: create a requirement for a file for each project, which contains the package to be installed, right? So since you are going to use Flask, you have to install Flask in your system, right? So that is what so requirement file is nothing but it is a text file in which you can give whichever package you want to install, and then you can give the command directly as pip install that requirement file name, right? So for example, if I am having the requirement file name in the name of requirement.txt, what I have to do, I have to go to the folder where requirement.txt is available, and then just give the command pip install requirement file name.txt. Automatically, whatever packages you have specified inside that requirement file will be installed. So next we are going to create a virtual environment for each project. So if it is an Ubuntu based system, or if it is a Windows based system, you have to create a separate folder or a separate environment for each project. Then only that corresponding requirements you can install within that project, right? So you should not use it as a root folder, right? So you have to create separate folders for separate projects, and that folders is represented as a virtual environment. So keep HTML files under the template folder. This is very much mandatory. So HTML files are nothing but views. Excuse me. So already we have seen the web application will be implemented as an MVC model, which is model, view, and controller. So HTML files are nothing but views what we are creating for the user to interact. Right? So these views, which are HTML files, should be kept under the template folder. You have to create a template folder, and within that folder, you have to keep all the HTML files. And if you have any cascading style sheets, which is represented as CSS files, that should be kept under static folder, right? So we will see an example of program which consists of view and controller in the same program, right? So that means you are going to embed the HTML code within the controller code, right? So I am moving on to Sublime Text, where already I have opened the content. So if you see this, this is what I have represented, and this is your HTML code which is embedded within this Python Flask itself, right? So if you see here, this is the HTML code which is represented here. So let me explain this program from Flask, import Flask, because we are going to use Python Flask for implementing this project. So for that, we have included this, and we are creating an object for the Flask, which is represented as app, right? So app is nothing but we are creating a object for the Flask, and this is very much important. We are using at symbol, which is represented as decorator, app.route, and then this is what the path in which your web browser is going to listen, right? So the path information will be given within this route method, right? So app.route, that means this is the path in which the browser is going to get the content from the user. And then we are defining a function for this particular routing, right? So this is known as routing, which is nothing but it is routing to a particular path which is represented as slash, right? So once the web browser is opened with the slash itself, it will print the content, and this function supports what it has to do while you are inside this particular path, right? So while you are inside this particular path, what it has to do, right? So within this function, it is just returning a HTML file. So just we have represented the HTML file within this string format. So doc type HTML and then metadata, and here just we are printing hello body. So these are all, so if you have already learned about HTML, this is a simple code which consists of HTML head and body tags. Within the body tag, we are representing hello, welcome to GCT. And within the head, it is having a title which is represented as display. Right. So now let's see how this particular program works. And this is very much important part where your Flask object is going to be executed. So just we are giving if name equal to main. So this is a mandatory to check whether it is a main object, and then app.debug equal to true and app.run. Automatically, so debug, why we are representing debug is equal to true. That means if there is any logical error or other syntax error that are available, not logical error, only syntax error can be identified, right? So if there is any syntax error, that can be visualized using this app.debug equal to true, right? If you're not setting it defaultly, it will be false, and you cannot view what error you have left in your program. Excuse me. So next we are giving app.run. So automatically it will execute. So now I'm going to execute this program. So I'm going for the server and then I'm just stopping the server using Control C. So I have stopped it. So it is in the name of static HTML. So just I am giving Python. I will move it little bit above. Python static HTML1.py. So now I have started the server and it is executing in this particular URL, right? So it is listening in the port number 5000. And as I said earlier, you can either use 127.0.0.1, otherwise you can use localhost to represent this, right? So just I am copying this and then I am going to for the browser and pasting it. So hello, welcome to GCT is nothing but once the server is started, it will search for the index.html page. So I will show you the arrangement. So here I have executed the simple, which is the simple project, which is available under a separate folder. So automatically virtual environment will be created for it, and this is the application where it is available, and this is the templates where we are represent. Sorry, this is for simple, right? So just I am represent, this is the index, right? So this is the index page. But here, inspect of index page, it is available within the content itself. So if you see here, it is available within the content, right? So hello, welcome to GCT. This content is printing in the web browser because both HTML as well as the controller is available in the same program. That is why it is printing hello, welcome to GCT, right? So this is what the output, what we got now. So next we will move on to the next slide where we are going to print dynamic text. So dynamic text is nothing but we are going to get the input from the user and that content will be displayed in the output, right? So that we will see it in next program. So application.py. So this is the Flask file. So where we are importing the Flask folder, sorry, package, Flask package, and then render template. This is very much important. Right? So why this render template is used? It is going to render the HTML file which you are going to instruct the program to render, right? For example, to get the details from the user, we are using getDetails.html file, which will be available under templates, right? So this is what getDetails.html, right? So what it is going to get? It is going to get the name as well as it is going to, it is having a submit button, right? So, and it is named as Go. The submit button name is Go, and it is going to get the name from the user. So why we are using this post method? Because it is going to write it into the web application. We are using post method. So after it is writing into the server, we have to read it. That is what display. So display, just it is displaying hello. What name you have represented that will be represented. So how it is implementing this? So same decorator is used and the route is represented as slash. Methods both get and post. Get is for to read and post is to create a new instance. And this is the function in which we are going to execute this routing information. If request.method equal to get, it will display the HTML file which is getDetails.html. And if request.method equal to post, it will get the name from the user and then that name will be sent to this display details.html file using this variable. Display name equal to name, right? So this name will be assigned to display name. And this display name is used in this display details HTML file. So this is the display name where we are using this HTML file, and that will be displayed here. Clear? So that is how we are executing. So now let's see how this particular dynamic text display is working. So previously we have embedded both HTML as well as the controller in the same program. Now we are going to execute as a separate program, right? So here the controller is there, right? And display details is one view, get details is another view, and that is kept under templates folder. So if you go and see here, you can able to understand. Under simple application is there, and then under templates we are having get details and display details, right? Okay, now let's execute this and check the output. So I'm stopping the previous server, Control C, and then I'm moving on to the folder which is simple. Within simple, the file name for Python Flask is represented as, what is the file name? Application, right? So Python application.py. So the server is started and it is running in this particular URL, which is a localhost address. So now I am going to refresh the browser. So it is asking for a name and then it is having a submit button, right? So just I am giving my name Devi and then submit hello Devi, right? So once again I am refreshing it, going back and then giving another name, Pooja, hello Pooja, right? So that is, this particular part is represented as dynamic based on the input given by the user. But in the previous program, we have displayed hello, welcome to GCT, which is a static text which is available inside the program itself, right? So that is the difference between the previous program and this program. So next we will move on to the database. Here the database we are going to use is SQLite, and DB browser is the one of the open source database browser which is supports SQLite, right? So there are different embedded DB browsers that are available. So here different embedded SQLite databases are available. So DB browser is used here to represent this SQLite, right? So there are many open source databases, Postgres, Maria, DB, MySQL, all are coming under client server model. But SQL is an embedded database, right? So why we are representing is as embedded database. MySQL and all, how we will represent within the database, we will have tables, right? But here the entire database and tables into a single file, it will represent, right? But here within a database, we will have separate tables in a Postgres or MariaDB, and it will work as a client server model. But in embedded database, entire database and tables are stored inside a single file, which is represented as SQLite or SQLite.p. Right. So we are using graphical user interface. So many graphical user interfaces are available for SQLite, dbeaver, SQLite Studio, DB browser. But here we are going to use DB browser for SQLite database. Now let's see some introduction about this DB browser. So this is what DB browser. I think you can able to see the contents. So first I am opening testdb. Cancel. So this is what the test db1.sqlite3, which is, so as I said earlier, it is an embedded database. Within this test db1.sqlite3 itself, we will have all the tables information as well as the database information. So if you see here, there are three tables which is created by myself. One is course table, which consists of two columns, course ID and title. And another is course instructor, which is going to map between this course ID and student ID. And final one is student, which consists of student ID and student name, right? So if you want to open an existing database, you can go for file and give for open existing database. Otherwise, if you want to create a new database, that is also possible by clicking on this new database. And similarly, if you want to view the content within this table, right? If you want to view the content within the course table, you can go for browse data. So this is the content which is under course instructor. So course ID 1 is mapped with student ID 1. Similarly, course ID 1 is mapped with student ID 2. So first we will see the student details. So student ID 1 is for Sarath, 2 Pooja, like that it goes up. It is unique, right? And then course 1 represents Python, 2 represents Java, 2 represents C, 3 represents Java, and 9 represents Java. And this course instructor is nothing but mapping between the course ID and student ID. And if you want to execute any SQL queries, you can use this execute SQL, right? Once you have done any updation, you have to write the changes. Now it is not enabled, it is disabled. And if you want, you can enable that, right? So this is how the DB browser for SQLite is working. Remaining content, we will see it in next class. Thank you.